Hello everybody, my name is Untot and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to share with you one of my favorite builds in Escape from Tarkov. Before we get into the video, a quick call out for my Twitch channel. You can watch me play Tarkov and try out new builds at untot_TV. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. One of my favorite ways to play Tarkov is to use a semi-automatic weapon shooting high caliber rounds. Therefore I end up playing a lot of RFB, especially in the early wipe, and then transitioning to the SA-58 or RSAS later on. This obviously depends on my budget, as both the SA-58 and the RSAS come with very high price tags for the base weapon, and both require a large amount of modding to be really effective. Usually costing between 300 to 400k in total for a fully modded out weapon. The RFB on the other side is a very cheap weapon and especially for its price very effective. However, it is very limited in terms of modding options. The build I want to show you today aims to be a middle ground, utilizing the SA-58 aka the juice cannon to create a mid-range DMR both in cost and performance, allowing you to upgrade from the RFB without paying 350k and completely ruining your economy each time you die. Before we get into the build, there are two prerequisites that I wanted to talk about. The first one is you need access to Peacekeeper level 4. The first part here is you need reliable access to M80 ammo, which Peacekeeper sells at level 4. And the second is level 4 also gives you access to the muzzle device that we want to use in this build. The second prerequisite is access to mechanic level 3. That's where we will buy the barrel and do the actual gun trade. Okay, let's get into the actual build. Starting off with the base weapon. Now, as you can see here, this is already where it starts to get interesting with the SA-58 because there are so many different options of buying the weapon in so many different versions. There are two options I want to especially highlight here. The first one being the barter at the very top from Peacekeeper. The barter only requires 3 HDDs and 2 RAMs, which can usually be bought off the flea market for around 50k, making it very, very cheap. The version of the weapon you receive is very basic, however, and you need to essentially replace every part except for maybe the barrel. Because of the low price, this can still be a good starting point for many builds. The second option is the one from mechanic level 3. This is what we'll be focusing on here, as it gives incredible value. The barter requires 8 weapon parts, which can vary in price from 9k to 15k on the flea market, but can reliably be bought for around 10 to 11k, putting the total price of the weapon at around 90k. Another benefit is that the barter is not limited, except for the total number of weapons that are available, meaning as long as you have weapon parts, you can continuously do the barter and continuously buy new weapons with it. Now that we've covered how to buy the base weapon, let's get into the modding. Here we have our beautiful new SA-58, just as we got it for a mechanic. It already comes with a lot of great default attachments, but let's go through them one by one. Starting off with the handguard. For the short and mid-range barrel, the weapon already comes with the best in slot option, which is a CAFV-FAS handguard. There are no real modding options for the dust cover and the rear side, so we just keep everything as is. The next interesting component is the stock. While it is possible to exchange the default stock using a buffer tube adapter, which allows you to attach the classic combo of Magpul MOE, Advanced Receiver Buffer Tube and butt pad, this costs around 35k in total from trader, and it ends up only giving you 2 additional ergonomics compared to the default. Therefore, this is not really worth it for the price, and this build uses the given BRS stock. For the grip, the weapon already comes with a best in slot option, so there's nothing to do here. Okay. Moving on to the barrel. Here we want to upgrade from the 11-inch barrel to the 16-inch barrel for the improved recoil. In doing so, we lose 10 ergonomics, but we receive 11 vertical recoil, which is a great trade. Additionally, we can keep the same handguard that we've previously selected and that comes by default with the weapon. The barrel itself is available from mechanic level 3 and costs around 26k. Up next is the muzzle. Here we want to utilize the BMD blast mitigation combo with the RR10 muzzle brake compensator. This makes this build loud, but gives great stats for very little budget, especially compared to a lot of the good silencers. The whole combo, consisting of 3 pieces, costs 40k from traders and can be bought from Peacekeeper level 4. One of the last components we're going to take a look at is the foregrip. The weapon already comes with the RFG black foregrip, which is a great choice for any budget build. We could replace it with something more fancy like the SA-58 or the RK1, but this comes with a pretty hefty price tag for very little improvement. Considering the RFG is completely free, we will keep it on this build to keep the budget low. Now, finally, let's talk about the magazines. This is probably a controversial point, but I recommend replacing the 50 round magazines with the 20 round polymer magazines. Now, why is that? The first reason being, this build aims to create a weapon for a DMR-like playstyle, so we will be utilizing mostly single fire, except for some extreme situations, and therefore we don't actually need the large magazines. The second reason being, the 50 rounder comes with a huge ergo penalty of -20, compared to the -2 of the polymer magazine. And the third reason is that using 21 magazines will allow us to ration our ammo more intelligently, meaning we don't lose 50 bullets plus whatever we have in our spare magazines each time we die, which will improve our economy greatly in the long run. And this is it. This is the build done. Let's review the final stats and price. We end up with 55 ergo and 80 vertical recoil. Now, while the vertical recoil is obviously far from the lowest possible and the ergo is far from the highest possible, those two stats provide a really good balance. The gun feels really good to use. The ADS time is not too high, and the vertical recoil can be controlled very easily while using single fire. Obviously, once you start using the weapon in full auto, the recoil is going to feel pretty punishing. That's why it's only a last resort option. Now let's take a look at the costs. The base weapon costs around 90k if we manage to get the weapon parts for around 11k each. All the modifications that we just discussed combined cost around 75k. This already includes 3 polymer magazines, meaning 3 20 round magazines, leaving us at 165k. If we now sell the components we have left over after modding to the traders, we get around 30k back, which brings the total cost of the gun down to 135k. Finally, a word about scopes and tactical devices. While scopes are definitely personal preference, I would not recommend running one of the high-end optics like the Voodoo or the Razor because they are just so expensive, and instead going for something cheaper which still gives some magnification. I personally usually end up running the Spectre DR because it has a very clean scope and it still gives you the option to snipe people from long ranges. And the whole optic only costs around 35k, which fits nicely into the rest of this build. And for tactical devices, the option to basically add any tactical device to the SA-58 is a huge benefit that the weapon has over the RFB, so it is definitely recommended. To give you some impression of how the build plays, I brought some gameplay of myself. I recorded on customs just a couple of days ago using our new off-meta build. As I'm approaching Big Red, I hear a couple of steps to my left. Let's see what happens. After very awkwardly killing the first guy, I will decide to retreat, to reload to my max, and while I do so I hear somebody taking shots at me. Here I am pulling up the dorms. As I do so, I hear a couple of steps inside. Let's see how this plays out.
Вот.
After finally killing Washala and all of his bodyguards, it's time to start the looting. Luckily for me, I remember to bring the Markdoom key for once. I make my way up to Markdoom as I enter here a couple of steps outside. After missing a lot of shots on the first guy, I finally kill them both and decide to continue looting first Markdoom and then the bodies outside. After all that, and with a lot of loot, I managed to reach extract and get out alive. I ended up earning 16k XP, killing Rashana and his guards as well as 4 players. Also the first 2 were only level 4, this was still a great raid. I really hope you enjoyed the video and you're gonna try out the build for yourself. Please let me know what you think about the build and the video or anything else in the comments below. Have a fantastic day.